Hey, what's up? Welcome. You are listening to TC the G Radio, Season 2, Episode 5. I am TC the G, broadcasting directly from Tijuana, Baja California. Thank you so much for tuning in. We are going to have a great time. The topic of conversation for today's show, porn industry. I chose this topic because I was recently watching the No Jumper podcast. If you are not familiar with the podcast, it is a very popular podcast that is centered around porn stars, porn adult sexual workers. The main host, Adam22, is one himself. He creates content on the OnlyFans page with his girlfriend. So he does interview a lot of porn stars and a lot of sex workers. I started doing some research on some of the females that they have brought on the show. To me, it is like super interesting to like their psychology, like what has driven them into that kind of life. That's like super interesting to me. So I started doing some research. Before anything, while they are on the interview, during their interview, I like to look like at their mannerisms, like how they behave. So I did notice that all of the females during their interviews, they're always like so sexual, like the way they move when they talk, the way they talk, of course, and like the content of what they speak about is only like about sex. Everything is about sex, like everything they speak about is just about that. It's like that's all their mind is filled with. Like it kind of reminds me like a drug addict, like a junkie. Like they can't get the thought out of their head. So I did go online and I looked up this one porn star that they were speaking to. Her name is Gianna Dior. And I saw one of her magazine covers where she's being held by like two guys opening her legs kind of thing. And she opened up her like her butt hole for the camera, to take a picture for this magazine cover. To me, it looked totally disgusting. Like one thing is being sexy and another one is like just straight up being disgusting, like not giving a fuck. Like who really does think that's sexy, like to be held like that and like have your butt just all the way open? Like it's like she just like they just don't give a fuck, like they don't really care. Like they have no class at all. Um, so to me, like it just it's a little bit like sad. It's a lot of it is sad. A lot of the girls that were there on the show, a lot of them were talking about how, they have like very like conservative, they were brought up in very conservative homes. So I think that has a lot to do with it. Like when you make something like sex like taboo, people are more eager to look for it, to get it. It's like wanting that thing that you can't have. Like some people are rebellious and they take it to the extreme and they end up like doing all these other crazy stuff. And I remember I saw this one episode as well on YouTube, or like a YouTube video that I saw, and it was like people from India, like from over there from India, and there was some of the, I guess they had like some kind of brothels over there, and some girls were like dancing, and there was like all these guys surrounding them, and then one of the girls was like, you see, this is why she was saying kind of like this is what happens because the guys were like all around them, like all zombied out, right? Like drooling over the women. So the woman was like, "See, this is why you should keep your. This is why you should not kind of like be not be so conservative about sex because it creates like this demand over it." And like it becomes taboo, so people kind of like go crazy for it in a way. Um, I'm not saying be completely liberal and like do whatever the f you want, but there should be like a balance, right? Like not too taboo, but just not too carefree. Like it should just be in the middle. And it's hard to believe sometimes that we're in 2022 and people are still like ignorant about sex and it's still taboo. And maybe that's something that's forever gonna be going on. I'm not sure. It's kind of hard to come to a conclusion about where the world is heading in that sense. But of course, the internet. allows us all to like speak about these things more openly, and we're able to discuss them. YouTube likes to block things, and a lot of social media like to block things. They like to block things and kind of like silence us. It shouldn't really matter what we say, what anybody says, because we have the freedom of speech, right? You don't have to agree with anybody saying. You don't have to follow them. You don't have to like them. You can just not click on their videos. Just like the same way as me. Maybe you don't like people, maybe there's some people that don't like what I say. They don't have to click on my stuff either. But if they do, then keep clicking on my stuff, and we'll continue to have these conversations. But the point is that there's no reason why we should be censored online on the internet. There should be, of course, there should be like laws for kids so they don't see adult content. But once you're an adult, you should already be responsible for your life, for your choices, for the things that you watch. I'm not saying everybody's smart because not everybody's smart or has common sense, right? But overall, if you're an adult, you should know better. Kids don't know better. So for them, I understand there should be some kind of laws and some kind of lines drawn, but not for adults, unless it's something like that's completely not healthy, like people murdering and like all that stuff. I've known some people that like to watch all these kind of weird things, like people doing some weird shit, like decapitating people and like cutting their penis off. Like it's just some weird shit out there that people are like even watch. Like it makes me wonder, like, why are you even watching that? Like you're like poisoning your mind with these kind of thoughts and ideas. Uh, The mind is like it's like a machine, like a computer. It has memory. So whatever you see, it just it gets recorded, and your mind and your subconscious mind kind of takes it in and can play future scenarios, like can play scenarios in your mind at future times, like about these things. Like the best thing to not have nightmares is to not watch things that are nightmare like. It doesn't mean that we're scared. It just means that it's not healthy. Like there's no reason to watch that. There's How is it benefiting us? There's no benefit to that. Of course, there's bad things that happen in the world, really, really bad things, like horrendous things that we all know about. We know what humans are capable of. We know that. It doesn't mean that we need to keep watching them, though. We don't need to keep watching these things. We can just turn it off, not worry about those kind of things. So I know some people are like, oh, well, I mean, whether you watch it or not, it's still there. Yeah, well, let it be there. You don't have to watch it. For what? It's just poisoning your mind. There's other things that you can watch that are uplifting, that brings peace to your heart, to your soul, things that actually matter in a way that they are helpful to towards humanity. Some things that will inspire all of us to do better, to help each other. All of these other thoughts, like porn and like all of these things, they take away our power, our willpower. And not to mention that they call out deviants and um what are they called, pedophiles and things like that. Like all these porn sites and things like that, whether we want to, whether we want to admit it or not, there's a black market that runs alongside with the porn industry. People get trafficked, minors, etc., etc. So we don't need to be like supporting the black market because we are supporting that same market that traffics kids and does all this other stuff, human trafficking, sex trafficking. There just needs to be more education towards our people, to everybody in the world, about sex and sexuality and reproduction, and not make it taboo. Because sex is for everybody. We are all here because of sex. So sex in itself is sacred. It's a sacred act, and it shouldn't be seen as a joke, as something that just fleets. Like a fleeting experience, something quick. Like sex is to be had with that person that you love and that you can see yourself having a family with, because a family can come out of sex. You can get pregnant. So we just need to be careful. The world has been the media has been advertising sex like it's some kind of recreational recreational experience, and it's not, like drinking a beer or smoking a joint or something like that. It's not recreational. It's something that you need to be aware of while doing it, because it can bring about life. It can bring about a baby. So it's not to be tabooed, to be feared, to be super excited about. It's just something that helps actually the species continue and survive, and something that you do with the person that you love because you're willing to have a family with that person. It's a responsibility. It's not just a game or a joke. That's when diseases come in, and sexually transmitted diseases and all these other things that happen when you are just being promiscuous about sex and not being careful and being responsible about it. I know the liberals like to will probably, or just people that might think that this is kind of like a conservative thought or view. It actually is not. It's a respectful view of what sex is and what we should be, how the outlook that we should have about it, that it's divine. It's something it's something holy, divine. It's not to be played with. And all of these girls, all of these females, porn stars, everybody who is in the sex industry, they just, I read this one quote one time that said, as human beings, we should be looking for a job that assists humanity, something that brings us up, that uplifts us. The whole the adult industry, it only brings us down to our lower desires. It doesn't bring us up. It brings us to a place where it can become an addiction. So another thing that I also noticed about a lot of the porn stars, they were like, oh, a lot of them don't want to have kids, which is cool. I think that's great. If you're going to be in the sex industry, you should not have kids, because all they're going to do is embarrass their kids. Honestly, that's all they're going to do is embarrass their kids. My mom was a sex worker. She was a prostitute over here in Tijuana, in La Cahuila. And childhood was horrendous. It was shitty. It was a shitty childhood, and no kid deserves that. A lot of them think, oh, but they're gonna have, we have money. I bet you anything, any kid would rather be poor with decent parents than be rich with parents that embarrass them or parents that are not there. So we really do need to think about what we are supporting, who we are supporting. Like these porn stars, there's no reason to support them. It seems like it's a new job that the economy has brought upon, and because of the lack of jobs and things like that, and the media with all the Cardi B's and Megan Thee Stallions, they just created like this thought culture, whole culture, prostitute culture, easy girl culture. There's nothing classy about that. There's nothing powerful about that. And a lot of them even don't even live but the things that they say. But they make money out of them while the rest of the people are being brainwashed, or the kids are being influenced by them. Again, they're doing a great job by not having kids, honestly, because they're just gonna be an embarrassment to the kids. So thank you so much for tuning in to TC the G Radio. I hope you enjoyed this episode. What are your thoughts on today's topic of conversation, porn industry? I want to know. comment, like, share, and subscribe. Remember to tune in to TC the G Radio every Thursday at 11:15 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Also connect with me on social media to get more of me and my music. I will leave all of my social media and contact info in the video's description. Again, thank you to each and every one of you for tuning in and for allowing me to share this time with you. Take care. Saludos.